Hello, and welcome back to SOMA Talks, the space where body and mind meet. This is Agatha, and today we are diving into something that touches almost everyone nowadays: the constant stream of media, screens, and digital noise surrounding us without even a break. We will also answer the question how it all can overwhelm us mentally, emotionally, and physically as well. Across the next 20 minutes, we will talk about what this digital overload really is, how it impacts us, and most importantly, how you can reconnect with yourself in a world that often pulls you away. Apart from explaining what digital overload is and why it matters, we will dive more into how it shows up in our bodies and mind, why the reconnection matters, and how we can do it. So, practical reconnection strategies, followed by fundamental statistics. Let's begin. What do I mean by media overload or digital overload? It's when the volume, speed, and access to digital media, information, social feeds, notifications, and screens exceed our capacity to process, integrate, or rest from them. Research shows this overload is linked to negative outcomes. For example, one study found that social media overload, so this information overload, communication, and social overload, can lead to negative psychological conditions such as social media fatigue and technological stress. Another article by the American Psychological Association reports that media overload is hurting our mental health and calls for media guardrails. In other words, it isn't just too many messages, it's also too much activation for our nervous system, too many demands for our attention, too little time to reconnect. It's biology asking for balance. By disconnecting from the world, you're actually reconnecting with yourself. How does this overload show up in our experience and everyday life? Firstly, mental fatigue. It becomes really hard to concentrate, to think clearly, or even to reflect. You become impatient and you lose focus very quickly. One article describes digital overload as quietly draining our minds and interfering with our ability to sustain attention. Secondly, emotion reactivity. Because our nervous system is in a heightened state because of notifications, alerts, comparisons, we might feel more anxious, more easily triggered. For example, a review found that high social media use correlates with anxiety, depression, and insomnia. We can add to this list physical symptoms, because overload shows up as poor sleep, tension in body, in muscles, maybe headaches, sometimes simply sense of restlessness. A study of digital stress among remote workers found an increase in digital stress from 9% to 20% and a predictive influence on negative emotions. Let's close this short list with disconnection from self, which is also one of the ways how digital overload shows up in our mind. Because being constantly on means less time to listen to our feelings, less space to pause and reflect, and less connection to our inner world. And everyone who ever experienced such a disconnection knows how important it is to take care of being constantly connected within ourselves. But of course, there are much more reasons why reconnection matters and what is missing in the life of constant overload. Firstly, inner stillness and awareness. We basically lose our capacity to be rather than do. Also, we lose our body wisdom because we may stop noticing those subtle signals of our body. Body is always telling us something. For example, fatigue, tension, hunger can be very easily overlooked when we live in constant digital overload. but they always tell us something important. We can also lose authentic connection with ourselves, with others. Screens can give connection, but are often shallow, filtered, fragmented. Also, many people say that they start to compare themselves to others, or they feel more depressed after spending too much time in social media. Also, we lose our choice, our intention, because when overload is the norm, we react rather than respond. We scroll rather than reflect. So we distract rather than feel. That's why reconnecting is so important, to reclaim our sense of self, our groundedness, our autonomy. Being connected means being powerful. And the question is, how do we do that? Here are some practical ways to reconnect with yourself in a digital world. Firstly, set your intention. Take a moment to ask yourself, how many hours per day am I on screens, social media, multiple apps? Track your screen time and see how much time you're sacrificing, how much time you're losing just because of being online. Notice how you feel before and after using media. The McLean Hospital Guide suggests rating emotions on a scale before and after social media to see the impact. And setting an intention could be, for example, I will check notifications only twice a day, or maybe I will switch off screen 30 minutes before bed. You can treat it as a challenge and see how it goes. Second strategy could be setting boundaries and rituals. For example, establish a tech-free windows in your day, such as morning walk without phone, evening journaling without screen, or meal times without device. It will also help you be more mindful. Use notification hygiene, so turn off non-essential notifications, group apps, delete those that you're not really using. Create buffer time, so really take space to disconnect from media. Another thing is literally physical separation. For example, leaving your phone outside bedroom, turn off the autoplay, or choose the check-in time when you allow yourself to check all the messages and notifications, but just within that window of time. It's also important to reconnect the body and the senses, which might sound very self-evident, but for example, try grounding practices like deep breaths, body scans, maybe stretching. Just notice the body's sensations. Then, when you feel overwhelmed, take just 3-5 slow breaths, maybe look around, notice 5 things you see, or 4 things you can hear, and so on. Just reconnect with your senses on this very basic level. You can also take a break, for example, 20-30 minutes of screen time. After that time, stand up, stretch, walk, and let your body move. I also offer you 2 additional strategies which are more mindful based on consciousness. Firstly, choose the meaningful digital use, because I'm not saying that digitalization is a bad thing. No, of course not. It's very useful, but we need to learn how to use it in order to keep our balance. For example, ask, do I really need this app? Or does this post or service serve me or distract me? Does it align with my values and well-being or not? You can also clean your feed, mute accounts that trigger comparison or anxiety. Follow accounts that inspire you, that relax you, that uplift you, not the ones that make you feel bad. And as I say, balance is the key. Try to combine digital with something more manual, like reading a book, writing by hand, spending time outside, and face-to-face conversation. The last grounding practice is obviously reflection. At the end of the day, ask yourself, how did I feel today? When was I most present? And when did I feel pulled away? Ask yourself such questions, and then you will see how digital overload impacts you. You can journal briefly. For example, today I noticed my body when something happened, or I felt most connected when. Consider an extended period of, for example, 1-2 hours or a day with minimal device use, just to reset and recharge your energy without any distractions. What does the research tell us? Let's take a moment to look at what science is showing us about digital overload. A large US study following nearly 10,000 adolescents found a clear pattern. The more hours young people spend in front of screens, the higher their levels of anxiety and depression. Another study from the Middle East showed that children now spend on average around 7 hours of screen time on school days and over 8 hours on weekends. And this was strongly linked with emotional and behavioral difficulties among these kids. Adults aren't immune either. Research with thousands of participants found that those who use their phones or tablets heavily were up to 1.5 times more likely to experience symptoms of depression or attention issues compared to those who didn't use media that much. And when you zoom out globally, surveys show that about 2/3 of people feel overwhelmed by the constant stream of online information. More than half admit they often get distracted from what they were actually doing, simply pulled away by notifications or endless scrolling. And I think that all of us experience it at least once in our lives. All of this data points to the same conclusion. Our nervous systems are overstimulated, constantly overstimulated. We are trying to keep up with an amount of input our minds were never designed to handle. So if you ever feel very tired or overwhelmed by media and digital tools that you're using, don't blame yourself, because this is very normal. This is how our nervous system reacts to what we are doing. The thing is, you still have a choice, and you don't need to drown yourself in this digital flood without any reflection. You can always pause. You can always ground yourself. There are so many ways to do that. And this is one of the reasons why SOMA Talks exists, to show you how to do that. Because it's not only your individual problem. This is where we are as a society, and it's very important to be mindful about it, to pay attention to it, and reconnect within ourselves. I hope that you already found some strategies that might work for you in this episode. Thank you for sharing this space with me again. If what we talked about resonated with you, I really invite you to pick one strategy from the list, as setting the boundaries, reconnecting with body, using media meaningfully, or simply reflecting on it. And try it even today, maybe in the evening before going to sleep. Remember that reclaiming yourself in a digital world isn't about rejecting technology. It's about aligning with your rhythm, with your body, with your presence. Thank you for today. Thank you for being here. Follow SOMA Talks for more episodes that are coming. I'm really excited to share with you new things on the profile. Until next time. SOMA Talks, Agata Daras.